Back in CanJam Singapore 2024, Timmy was in Singapore and he was gathering feedback on a mysterious new IEM. Of course, now in June 2024, we know this IEM to be the Dunu X GizAudio Da Vinci. This is his third IEM collaboration and will the third time be the charm to release a banger of an IEM. So the IEM is called the Da Vinci, and the first thing that comes to mind is the Vitruvian Man, which is an artwork that looks like a naked dude doing jumping jacks. But we did not get that here on the box of the Da Vinci, unfortunately. The sleeve of the Da Vinci has some gears and the back is just some specifications with nothing really special going on. Inside the box, we have the chassis of the IEMs themselves sitting in a bed of foam. Right below that is a case that contains the rest of the case candies. The case here provided is really nice. I enjoyed the fabric of the case and it looks a bit more premium compared to those more generic looking ones. Inside the case are 3 sets of ear tips in an assortment of sizes. You get a set of candy ear tips, some generic ones, while the other set is the Dunu S&S ear tip, which is really nice. They look odd but feel also comfortable in the ears. Apart from the cable, you also get a 3.5mm and a 4.4mm interchangeable plug. Lastly, Dunu provides a 1/4-inch jack converter and a IEM cleaning tool as well. Now, let's talk about the build quality of the Da Vinci. The first thing that caught my eye is the stabilized maple wood faceplate. This is done through a process where acrylic polymer, a type of plastic, is dissolved in a solvent and then later forced into the wood through various means such as vacuum and pressure cycles, effectively making wood take on a plastic-like characteristic. The results are quite random and will largely depend on the wood grain. There are some really gorgeous examples of these faceplates on the press photos. The ones on my model don't have the crazy sort of layering and it's mostly grey blackish with hints of orange, but they are still really rather pretty. The chassis of the Da Vinci is a rather standard custom universal shape that is quite forgettable in 2024, where 1001 companies are doing something like that every other week. It features a 2-pin termination which allows you to swap cables easily as well. Inside the Da Vinci is where things get interesting. Featuring 2 dynamic drivers plus 4 balance armatures per side, it uses 2 dynamic drivers, one which is a 10mm driver while the other is a smaller 8mm, 2 balance armatures for the mids, 1 for the highs and 1 more for the ultra highs. Tonally, if you're wondering, this eclectic mix of drivers will result in some sort of different tonal color. I can only say that it has a typical hybrid tone where bass is basically handled by the dynamic drivers and balance armatures doing the rest. If you have an IEM in this configuration, you should be quite familiar with the tonal color of the Da Vinci. The Da Vinci uses a 5-way crossover system which is done quite well, as I don't find them to be incoherent or to be particularly problematic. It's actually really well done. The cable provided here is quite nice and is named Leo. This is a lit silver-plated copper cable that is finished with a threaded connector swapping system. This is much better than the friction-based system as they tend to get very loose if you swap the plugs out a lot. And with a threaded section, this will prevent that from happening. Although I must say that it is quite easy to unscrew the thread on the said cable, but overall it's a much better design than the friction-based ones. Ergonomics! Ergonomics on the Da Vinci works really great for me. Please note that I have actually quite large ears and most earphones will typically fit me quite fine. I do find the shell a little big for those of you who might have smaller ears, so fit on those type of ears might be a little tricky. Now let's talk about sound. The Da Vinci is a reversion to a signature that we are more familiar with before 2023 and 2024, where the meta was moving towards a more upper mid emphasized sort of signature as seen in the likes of the SIMGOT EA500 and EA1000. It takes a more relaxed approach to the upper mids without them being too in your face, and because of this I was able to listen to the Da Vinci for hours on end. What was done pretty well on the Da Vinci was the levels of dynamics. Even on more compressed modern recordings, I enjoyed the extra punch when the kick drum comes in a really rather busy bass line. The Da Vinci is an IEM that leans on the warm and resonant side and has a tone of a typical hybrid IEM. Bass on the DaVinci is handled by two dynamic drivers, one of which is a 10mm while the other is a smaller 8mm. This results in a very dynamic listen. The thing with popular modern music is that they are mastered in a way where it's just very compressed sounding. So it's nice to have a more dynamic sounding earphone to give the music a bit more life and a bit more kick. The DaVinci has an emphasis on the sub-bass that tapers off just so slightly when it transitions to mid-bass. This results in a beautiful growly sounding bass that still has ample body to accompany as well. Mid-bass is present but never overextends into the mids. Resolution here is very good on the DaVinci. I do find that transients on the DaVinci to be above average with pretty lovely resonance as well. Next up, mid-range. DaVinci is a warmish sounding IEM, that is to say that it is tonally warm, which is really fun to listen to. Vocals especially has a sweetness that makes it quite delicious to hear. It isn't too overly extended in the upper mids, as such it isn't as exciting as what we got in 2023. For me, when I listen to music, I like to listen to the various layers of instrumentation, but on the DaVinci I found myself very often drifting towards the vocals. Vocals for both male and female sound quite full and big. This is quite different from leaner sounding earphones, as there is just more energy carried here. What was pretty pleasant was how distorted guitars sound here. There is this crunch that is coupled with body that is pretty endearing. Despite its thicker tonal weight, resolution remains pretty high on the DaVinci. Treble is quite again tastefully done on the DaVinci. I found that it transitions quite seamlessly from upper mids and isn't all that jarring or disjointed. Treble extension is great on the DaVinci and I found it performing quite airily despite it being of a warmer tone. Sibilance was kept in check on the DaVinci. So soundstage of the DaVinci when it comes to width and height on a scale of lacking in soundstage, average, good, or is this reality? I would say when it comes to width, the DaVinci is good. Also next, when talking about height, in the same scale of what is this, average, good, or is this reality, the DaVinci is actually good in terms of height. So it's actually quite a wide and tall experience. Next, when it comes to dynamics on a scale of what is this, average, good, or is this reality, when it comes to depth, I would say that on the DaVinci is actually really good because when the mid-bass kicks in with the dynamics, you really get a lot of depth in terms of sound. And when it comes to positioning, the treble frequencies are the one that really allows you to pinpoint where the instruments are. Now, the treble on the DaVinci, it isn't super pronounced, but it is present and airy enough for that to be very clean edge. And because of that, positioning is also really good. So next up, compared to the SIMGOT EM10, so another IEM that was recently released was the SIMGOT EM10. Now it also has a warmer signature, which is kind of similar to the DaVinci, and I can see why they are often compared together. But the thing is, the EM10 is quite a bit more expensive. On the whole, the EM10 has better resolution as it is easier to perceive details on them than on the DaVinci, but that said, the DaVinci is still very respectable there as well, especially when it costs so much lesser. The EM10 has a faster bass transient response and it's a little bit less dynamic than the DaVinci. The DaVinci, on the other hand, has a more resonant sound by comparison. Bass isn't as fast as the EM10, but it does have resonance, of which some will love. Both these earphones are great, and it's really quite a testament that the DaVinci can actually be compared to the EM10. Yes, the EM10 is no doubt the better earphone here, but it's also more expensive. So if you are on a budget and want something sort of like the EM10, you can consider the DaVinci. It is quite a good replacement, although it's not better than that. Next up, versus the DITA Project M. First, a disclaimer, I'm part of the team that worked on the Project M. The Project M is a very different beast compared to the DaVinci. It is a natural, warm sounding IEM that is pretty technical sounding compared to the DaVinci. Resolution on the Project M is ahead of the DaVinci. Treble extension is also more effortless on the Project M. Tonally though, the Project M is leaner sounding by comparison, so it's a really different flavor compared to the DaVinci. The DaVinci, on the other hand, is a thicker sounding IEM and has a very nice tonal color in the mid-range, where it just works its magic when it comes to male vocals being so much fuller sounding. Both these IEMs are very different in terms of voicing, and it is really a matter of preference on which you would prefer. The DaVinci doesn't have as much resolution as the Project M, but the DaVinci has a really warm tone that many will like. Next, what I like and what I do not like on the DaVinci. I think that the DaVinci is an excellent earphone if your repertoire of music is more modern pop, as it really lacks the dynamics in them and can be quite sad to hear without a dynamic earphone. It is nice that the DaVinci manages to remedy this and inject life into it. Again, the inclusion of the threaded interchangeable plugs is really nice as well. And what I do not like on the DaVinci, I found the chassis to be a little large. While it certainly did not affect me, I can see how people with smaller ears, this can be quite problematic. And finally, rating. Is this a blind buy, one to strongly consider buying, try first, or give your enemy earphone? The DaVinci are a pair of earphones that I would strongly consider. It will make a very good pair if you currently don't own a thicker sounding IEM, as I enjoy its thicker note rate rendered on these quite a bit. So if you already have a leaner sounding IEM, this is a very good contrast to that, and will really give you options to choose which to pair with your music. Now, you can certainly use either sort of tone for all types of songs, but sometimes it's fun to just match things around. Anyways, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Superchunk Super Audio Show. The DaVinci is one IEM that I really enjoyed. If you liked the video so far, please kindly press the like and subscribe button down below. It will help me out immensely. And yeah, if you have not done so, you can just do that and become an amazing person. With that said, I hope to see you guys soon.